Good morning, everybody, and welcome here to the Pocono Raceway Media Center. We're going to start off our day being joined by Brad Keselowski, driver of the number 2 Alliance Truck Parts Ford for Team Penske. And really, you know, Brad, when drivers come to Pocono, a lot of things to do outdoors. I don't think you had time to enjoy that this week. You had a little something going on.
No, we had a pretty long week or short week, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it, with testing in New York and, trying to get ready for everything else that's coming up. And so we're glad to be here. It's been a good track for us, trying to keep kind of the role that we've been on here going. I think we got a great shot at winning. Of course, we qualified up front here and on the pole in the first race. Which always puts a little bit of pressure on you coming back because it's kind of hard to top that. But we didn't win. I think we finished third, had a shot at it there late, and last fall in this race we finished second. So, I think we've got a great shot in general of winning here again, and would like to get number 5 up on the board and just kind of ready to get to it.
Good. It's good to have you here. We're going to start off here with Woody, and then we'll go to Al, and we'll get wireless mics to you.
Woody came with MRN. Brad, other than the crash, I was curious about your impressions of the newly repaved Watkins Glen, and do you remember the last time you crashed on a road course test and then came here?
Yeah, I do remember. If I didn't remember it, I'm guessing they wouldn't let me sit here. My thoughts on the pavement is, I think we've seen a pretty dramatic shift in probably the last 4 or 5 years with respect to the type of pavement that's being used to repave the tracks. And we probably saw that again at Watkins Glen, where the pavement is very, very smooth, lasts a really long time. Unfortunately, it doesn't wear the tires, which is, a key component to the way the cars perform. And it's kind of an interesting relationship there. But the track itself has a lot of grip. It's very smooth and should put up some fast speeds. Of course, the struggle is to try to get the cars to where they can run in multiple grooves because of the limitations of the tire and the new surface. So the track itself is in beautiful condition to run, single file, but we got to continue to work on, aggregates and tires and all those things to open up the passing.
We're going to go next to Al, and then to Bob, and then to Kenny, and then to Jerry.
Yeah, Brad, Al Pierce from Auto Week. I've talked to a number of young drivers who are mired at the back of the pack every weekend. They worry that they're in a vicious cycle where they're not in equipment good enough to show their talent, so they don't have the talent to get good equipment. That never happened to you. You started pretty much with good stuff. What would you say?
At the cup level, sometimes, yeah.
Well, but you won with Finch, and then that got you where you. So anyway, my point is this: if a young kid came to you and said, "I'm in a cycle, I can't get out of this deal," what would you say? Any advice to kids who think they'll never get any further than 35th to 40th every weekend?
Well, I would say, first off, if you have that mindset, you're not going to. If you're defeated in your mind, you're not going to ever get there in reality. I think there was a good point in time in my career where I was not in quality rides or equipment. You're being watched whether you think you are or not, no matter how you run. And all you can do is outperform your equipment, and that's running smart races and building great relationships with your team and people that are in the sport, maybe even your manufacturer. And I would tell anyone in those situations that to make the most of your opportunity, and you'll keep getting opportunities. You will leapfrog in this sport, and not just in this sport, but in this life. And I'm a big believer in that. So, I don't believe in the cycle of being stuck in bad equipment. I believe in the cycle of, in this life, more times than not, you get what you deserve or where you're supposed to be. Of course, I've caught some breaks to be where I'm at right now, and I recognize that. But I think if you go out and make the most out of every opportunity you have in life, that things work out, and that's just been my guiding light.
Go to Bob, and then to the back to Kenny, then over to Jerry, then up front to Lee.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. In regards to the wreck at Watkins Glen, are you comfortable with the tire barrier that you hit versus whether there should be a safer barrier there? Also, had you guys done anything to the floorboard, footbox area, maybe since Road America or since the other recent crashes to help you? And also, finally, will you do any changes to as far as the brake package that you were using to avoid it in the future?
Yeah, well, I guess 3 parts there, so bear with me if I miss a part. Am I comfortable with the tire barriers? Yeah, I understand the whole tire barrier concept. In general, I'm not comfortable with tracks that have, runoffs that lead to very harsh angles, and that's certainly the situation that track has and always has had it. Road courses remain the most dangerous tracks in motorsports for good reason because of that. But we know that going in. Some place has to be the safest, some place has to be the most dangerous. It's funny because a lot of times we end up talking about Daytona and Talladega, and they don't ever worry me as much as road courses do. I can promise you that. But I guess from a tire barrier perspective, taking out the angles, yeah, tire barriers are safer barriers. It's kind of a wash to me on those types of tracks. Preferably we just have angles to where when you hit, you can hit it with a safer barrier and not have to worry about things. But I understand there's some limitations there because a lot of these road courses run, different series and so forth, and they don't want to get into a situation where a minor spin damages, some rich guy's $300,000 car. So there's some trade-offs there, I understand, but that's just part of it. As far as the car, there's been a lot of changes in our car since 2011 with regards to safety, and I think we went through, at least with Team Penske, a complete safety overhaul from the pedals being redesigned to hopefully not break my feet, which I didn't, which was great. The floorboards redesigned with a completely new style of carbon fiber and I'm trying to think of the right term there, but composite materials. The seat, we helped a company design a new seat from that time, which I think there's a handful of teams in the garage that are running it that we feel is significantly safer. The steering wheel itself, Max Pappas designed a new steering wheel that's meant to absorb a lot of energy. So that was redesigned. I know the shifter was redesigned. I'm sure I'm missing some parts out there. I know there's some helmet redesign work, some seatbelt redesign work. So a lot of pieces were redesigned, and I think from what I can tell at this moment, all the pieces that we were able to redesign performed very well. The one piece we weren't able to redesign, which was the steering column, is probably the weakest link in those type of impacts at the moment. Of course, there's always going to be one weak link, but that one in particular, continues to be a pretty big issue. I think we've seen that a couple times here over the last few years where the steering wheel comes back up in your face and can do a lot of damage to your helmet, your head, etc. I got lucky that I didn't get too much of it, but in general, I would say I'm fairly pleased, but always looking for more. No, there was just an installation error with the brakes. So, yeah, the brake line wasn't installed in the proper way, and it broke.
Go next to Kenny, Jerry, Lee, and then back to Dustin.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. I won't ask 4 questions. I'll see what I
It's okay.
No,
he just got them all out in one big chunk, so I kind of feel good about that.
He pretty much covered what I was going to ask. But talking about the structural changes that NASCAR announced, do you know if that will increase or how much weight that will add to the car and if it will change things like center of gravity? And also, would you make those changes for Talladega during the chase since that's optional?
Well, I can't speak, I guess, to your second part as far as will I make the changes. I don't work as much on the race cars as I used to, so I will definitely not be making any changes. But the team themselves, I don't think we have any plans to undergo those before Talladega. The timeline for building those cars is already come and passed with respect to that particular feature on the car. Even though the cars aren't complete, that feature on the car that is done through our chassis shop. I saw the cars yesterday, actually, so I know it's already done past that step, so it's kind of too late for us. I'm sure there'll be some others that do undertake those steps. I think it's probably the right direction with respect to those racetracks, although I would like to have seen it, probably done in a different way with respect to not adding as much weight to the car. It's kind of one of those dorky engineering formulas where, you add more mass to something to make it safer, but then when you hit something else, you hit it harder. So We're safer in a sense because the cars are bigger and more steel. It's like a tank, but when two tanks run into each other, it's still two tanks running into each other. So you lose the efficiencies there. So I think overall it's probably a net gain, and I think there's probably a challenge that could be undertaken by the industry to find a better way to do it than just throwing steel at it. But that said, I'm still happy that we're thinking in the right direction.
Go next to Jerry, then to Lee, and then we'll finish up with Dustin.
Jerry Jordan, Performance Racing Network, Kicking the Tires. With 4 wins at this point in the season, how do you rate your? Obviously it's not bad, A, B, or C. And do you have the ability now, you and Paul, to take chances and kind of focus on the final 10, or do you just go for more wins, considering the Toyotas are so dominant?
I think having 4 wins at this point is certainly something we're ecstatic about. And if we're looking back and not forward, that's a good place to be in the year is to have 4 wins just past the midway point. Unfortunately, it doesn't count for much once we get to the chase, but it's something we can be proud of and look forward and say that we're off to a good start. As far as taking chances, I kind of feel like it's the exact opposite. I know you hear all the time about taking chances. Honestly, I feel like it's the exact opposite. I think as a driver that you do things a lot differently once you already have wins where you take less chances. I think the team itself takes more chances with parts and respect to failure and strategy. But it seems like, as a driver, it's like with having the reset in the chase, it reminds me of like an NBA game where, you reset at the end of the third quarter. And so all you do as a driver is try not to have any fouls so you try not to have everybody pissed off at you until you get to the last quarter. That's kind of my take on it, because it doesn't really matter once you have a win. Nothing else really matters. You could have 10 wins. It just doesn't get you anywhere. I think from that perspective, there's more chances probably from the team side, and as we've seen this chase evolve, there's probably less chance taking from the driver's side.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. Can you talk a little bit about restarts? Jeff Gordon last week said he had his butt handed to him pretty much because, when you're kind of out of practice, and I would also guess at nearing 45 years old, your reaction time may be not as quick. And how much experience do you think Kyle Busch gained learning how to perfect restarts from spending as much time in the Truck Series as he did?
Talking about restarts, I would say that restarts have developed into a key part of our racing since we've gone to double file restarts. What happens is you always have one line that's preferred and one line that's not, and of course you have the whole restart zone situation, and what that's created is this offense/defense mode that everyone goes into depending on whether they're in the preferred or non-preferred lane, and it's just different tactics than I think what we've traditionally seen in the sport, and those tactics have evolved over time, Lee, to where the drivers that have a lot of experience are pretty darn good at it. So the more experience you can get at it in those other series is very beneficial, especially as the leader. And I would say that Kyle's kind of getting out of it what he puts in. He puts in a lot of work, and he's getting a lot of results out of it, and he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Where would you rank yourself among competitors on restarts?
Some days you feel really good, some days not so much. I think right now that it's my opinion that probably Joey Logano is the best restarter in the sport right now, and Kyle's probably a pretty close second. I think I'm probably in that top 10 bracket, but not as high as I want to be. I want to be the best at it.
Finish up with Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. You talked about the things that have been learned since the big accident at Road Atlanta. Where do things need to go forward with this incident this time? Obviously, Denny had one that was somewhat similar to this a few years ago. This probably isn't the last time something like that's going to happen at that place or any place else. So you've talked about what's happened since. Where do things need to go now? What needs to be looked at? And one other thing, with the steering wheel, was that your head that hit, or was that more your chest that bent that up?
I think everything. To your second question, I think everything. With respect to what needs to change, it's a good question. One that I don't know I have all the answers to. The answers I do have is that, there's only so many of those hits you're going to take before someone gets killed. It's just the way it is. I know that. It's not something I'm comfortable with, but I think as a sport, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. At the end of the day, I'm still standing here. Odds are that if 100 people take that hit, 1 or 2 are not going to be standing here anymore. I think that's pretty safe to say. So since half a dozen have taken pretty similar hits in that same part of the racetrack, I would say it begs to reason that maybe a change should be made in that area. But I can't say that I have the specific idea at this time, because more people are going to take that hit, and eventually one of us ain't going to come back. But that's something that the smart guys that work on that stuff are going to have to figure out sometime.
And you make a statement as strong as that. Why don't you just say, why don't the guys, and maybe it's not as simple as getting everybody together, say, look, we're not going to do this, or this needs to be changed before we come back, and maybe not everybody agrees with you, but when you make a statement that strong, why isn't there some action that's put forth with it?
Well, to some point we've signed up for a certain level of risk, and that's right on the edge of what's acceptable risk. I think every driver has their own line, and if you're looking at it from that perspective, I think every driver is saying that that's the acceptable risk they've signed up for, and it falls within those parameters.
Well, Brad, we're glad to have you here today, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Take care. We're going to continue on with our media availability this morning with Matt Kenseth, driver of the number $20 General Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. Winner of this race last year, and what was an exciting finish. And you had to be, wondering what was going to happen at the end of that race. But aside from coming up here and winning races, what do you do when you're up here? There's a lot of things to do here in the outdoors in the Poconos, and I know you like to bike ride, hunt. Is there anything special you like to do around here? Huh?
Yeah, let's go hunting right after practice.
Yeah, there you go.
The finish of the race was great for us last year. It's been better for us here. The last year was pretty decent, and this year so far was pretty good. We ran pretty good in the spring. Used to be probably one of my worst tracks, I think, statistically, how we performed and really how we finished. So it's been better for us lately. So hopefully we can just continue from there and get a little better, and hopefully have a shot this weekend, be up front somewhere.
Outstanding. Let's open the floor up for questions. If you have a question for Matt, raise your hand. We'll get a wireless mic to you. We'll start here with Zach and then go over to Dominic.
Zach Tanzarelli, Fun Stretch. With the win last year, at this point in your career, does a win at a track after so long, does it give you more confidence? Or at this point in your career, do you really just show up at a track and you know the feeling when you come into it already?
Well, everything changes a lot from year to year, the rules packages and what you learn on your cars and your setups and maybe how your organization or cars are running, that type of thing. But certainly whenever you run better somewhere, your confidence level is higher than when you go to a place and you don't run well. It's just kind of human nature. And that's always subject to change at any time. You might go to your best track that you feel the best at and feel like maybe you're one of your best places and run really bad, and you might go to the place you feel like is not a good track for you and run good. You never know what's going to happen, but certainly the success always breeds confidence.
Go next to Dom, then up front to Woody.
Dominic Udigo on the RacingExperts.com. When you look at your last 3 races here, 3 top 10s, including the win last year, how much do you and your team look at the numbers going into a race like this?
I don't typically really look at those kind of numbers. We're always looking through other numbers, stats, and how the race plays out typically, and averages for cautions and fuel mileage, those kind of numbers. But as far as what you did, before, as far as just qualifying and finish position, that kind of thing. I don't think we really sit and break that down, because that doesn't really matter. It doesn't really mean anything for, what's going to happen necessarily this weekend.
Come up front, the Woody.
Woody came with MRN. Matt, with the Olympics coming up, I was curious if you pay attention to any of that, or you have any particular sports in that you like, and what do you think about the possibility of one day adding racing?
I got to be honest, I don't pay much attention to it. I probably will, maybe a little bit more than maybe I have in the past, but I just really haven't watched it that much. Adding racing, that'd be fine.
Go right here to the middle here.
Zach Sterniolo with the Pocono Record. Matt, I know that the Gibbs cars about midway through the race back in June were really competitive. You and Kyle were up front, but ended up you were finishing one of the bunch, coming home 7th, no one in the top 5. Do you feel, especially after the way you guys ran last week at Indy, do you feel more confident heading into this week?
I felt really confident last time. We didn't get a lot of practice, on Friday. We qualified really well. I think we qualified 2nd or 3rd. We had a really good car. We just really struggled on restarts and kept getting behind on restarts. So hopefully we have that fixed for this time. Worked hard on that. Try to keep our track position a little bit better. And then we just got off a little bit on a set of tires and adjustment, got behind. But I really felt like we had a car that could have competed for the win last time. So felt good about what we did there, and we're just trying to build on that and improve that a little bit for this time.
Go to Jerry, then up front to Lee, and then to Scott.
Jerry Jordan, Performance Racing Network, Kicking the Tires. We talked at Richmond about your season. At this point, a little past halfway, I asked Brad this earlier to rate his. Can you rate your season at this point with the 2 wins and how you're looking forward to the chase?
Well, I don't know about just rating it as far as a grading scale or anything, but overall it's been good. I think we've ran pretty well on average. There's certainly been some weeks where we've missed it and not performed well, but there's been a lot of weeks where we have performed well, maybe not got the finishes, and then fortunately we've been able to get a couple wins along the way, which is always great. So I think it's been good. I think all our Toyotas at JGR have been really competitive and really fast and leading laps and winning races. So it's fun to be part of that.
From the Lee.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. Brad Keselowski was in here, and he said that he thought that road course racing is the most dangerous racing that you all encounter throughout the course of the year. But is that also what makes it so exciting for the race fans?
The danger aspect, I hope not. I don't know. There's been a lot of bad wrecks at Watkins Glen. I think it's hard to just group road courses together, even though we only do 2 of them. But Watkins Glen is really fast. I will say that they've done a lot of things to try to make that safer, and we've seen some terrible wrecks there. I can't really comment on Brad's wreck because, I'll be honest, I haven't seen it. But that wreck a few years ago with, I think it was Ruderman, hitting that wall off of turn 1, going in, that's a place you'd never think about wrecking, and that was just an awful wreck. And of course, off of I don't know what you want to call that, turn 5 or whatever, there's always been those wrecks, and they do react, and they try to make the track as safe as possible, but there's just a lot of weird angles there, and you're going really, really fast, for a road course at that place. So yeah, if you had to rate them, it's certainly one of the the more dangerous tracks you go to, just because you're not contained like you are at an oval.
We'll go to Scott and then back to Kenny.
Scott Walsh from the Scranton Times Tribune. Matt, could you just talk a little bit about halfway through the season now with the use of the new digital dashboards? Can you just talk a little bit about how you feel they're performing, and was it in a big adjustment period from the gauges that you were used to over the years?
Yeah, it's fine. It probably, I guess maybe the teams can get a little bit more information than maybe they did before. I'm not sure, but for us, or for me anyway, it doesn't really change anything. I get pretty much all the same information I got before with round gauges, with the exception of lap times. Is the only thing I really get that we couldn't get before. So, it's fine. I don't think it's really changed much from the cockpit, but it's fine.
Finish up with Kenny.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Matt, NASCAR's announcement that they were going to go back with the rules package, with the same rules package at Michigan instead of running the 16 initial package, I guess.
Yeah.
Your take on that? Are you glad they're going back with that one more time? Or I think you had like a 14th place finish there back in June. glad for the change, or would you like to see them stick with what they have?
Well, whenever you ask drivers, I mean, we all, want what's best for our particular situation. So last year I felt like we performed really good with all the aero packages. We were able to win with all of them as an organization this year. Michigan, we ran really, really bad, or at least I did, with the 20. But Kentucky, we ran pretty good. I think we were running second, and Brad made it on fuel, and we couldn't make it. And I thought we had a top 3 or 4 car with that same package. So, I'm looking forward to going back to Michigan. And, if I could pick one, I don't know. We've probably ran better overall with a 16 package, but we've only had 2 shots at that newer package. So, and like I said, Kentucky was much improved over Michigan. So, looking forward to running it again, especially if that's the direction they're going for next year, and seeing if we can improve on what we did last time, and hopefully run farther toward the front.
Matt, really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. Good luck. If I could have your attention here in the media center, we are going to continue our media availability today with Daniel Hemric, who's a driver of the number 19 Blue Gate Bank Forward in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. And we were talking a little bit while you're off stage, but have you gotten all the dirt out of your fire suit after Eldora?
Close, not all the way. That's always an interesting experience, but we come close. I feel like we made the most out of our opportunity there that day, so ready to be here at Pocono, though.
Yeah, you're really getting on the wheel these days, and you seem to be making some strides in that truck right now.
Yeah, I feel like everybody at Brad Keselowski Racing has done a great job to keep preparing really good Ford F-150s, and we've constantly gotten better throughout the year, and it's easily overshadowed by the chase and the fact that we haven't won a race yet, but I know that we're putting ourselves in position. That's all you can ask for.
Good deal. We're going to start over here with Woody, and we'll work around the room.
So Woody came with MRN. Just to follow up on that point, you guys are one of those who are good points-wise but don't have that win yet. A lot of people are saying we may have more than 8 winners in the Truck Series, or at least the 8 winners. How do you feel about where you guys stand right now? Obviously, you've been fast, but you'd like to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, winning is the reason we load our trucks every week and come to the racetrack. But on the backside of that, to see where we're sitting at on the point side of it and see how consistent we've been and how I feel like as a team we've gotten better and better, especially over the last month and a half, 2 months. To know that, like I said, that when columns linger and they're empty, it's easy to get frustrated or disappointed in that. But at the end of the day, we've on a solid, consistent basis, and the points show we've constantly put ourselves where we need to be to win races. Just everything hasn't 100% fell into place, but don't take away from the lack of effort or the group of guys or our communication. I feel like we're as good as we've been all year and constantly getting better.
Go next to Chris.
NightCatchFence.com. Daniel, you're at an average of 5 positions higher this year than you were this time last year. How would you feel that the move has paid off to Brad Keselowski from NTS last year?
The move has been huge for me. I mean, obviously, last year starting off, being my first full-time year in the series, and having a lot of unknowns, going to different racetracks, stuff I'd never seen, and now having that experience, and then having an opportunity to lean on Brad's has been huge for me as well. So the move has been nothing but exactly what I expected. Obviously, the expectation to win the races, like I said, is something we keep touching on, but it's something that we all expect, and I expect as a driver. But that's the only probably disappointing side of the move is I haven't got ourselves in victory lane yet. But outside of that, I know that we're doing everything we can do, and I'm really happy with where I'm at.
Go next to Al.
Hey, Daniel, Al Pierce from Auto Week. A question totally unrelated to racing.
Oh, boy.
Your uncle's a pretty good basketball player, wasn't he?
He wasn't bad. Yeah, Dickie Hemric, my uncle, he played for Wake Forest and retired his jersey there in the rafters at Wake Forest. So really cool side story. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, he did. I don't think my height allowed for it.
Any other questions for Daniel? We'll go with Scott.
Scott Walsh from the Scranton Times-Tribune. Danny, can you talk a little bit about the use of the caution clock so far in the Truck Series? How you feel it's been working, and maybe how it's helped you maybe at some point during the season.
Yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 on the caution clock. I feel like my crew chief Chad would say the same thing. We've had moments where it's helped us and moments where it's hurt us. Ultimately, some of these races, you look at the mileage and your fuel mileage and see how the race trends have played out, and you try to judge when the caution clock and all that stuff's going to play out around those, the past numbers have shown. So, I think Pocono is probably going to offer a little bit of an interesting characteristic, kind of like Daytona did. A lot of guys short pitted the clock, trying to get track position once everybody did pit, and that's all miscued depending on tire wear and whatnot and fall off. So every racetrack's been a little different, so we've had to approach it a little bit differently depending on where we're going. But I feel like my guys have done a really good job keeping me up to date on what the plan was for the week coming up, and but there comes times where there's variables where you don't know what's going to happen, so you got to be ready to make a move on the fly, and the caution clocks put that excitement back in the sport.
Zach Struniolo with the Pocono record. You touched on that you're coming back to tracks that for the second time now, this being one of them. How do you feel heading into tomorrow's race?
Besides the fact that you're going back to a racetrack we've been, I feel good about our program. So then to be able to know I have that confidence, and then going to a racetrack where you're not searching the first lap on the racetrack, you have a pretty good idea where you need to be at. That's huge from a driver's confidence point, and huge from a team confidence point. That they understand that I feel like I know where I need to be. I know our trucks are getting better, and that makes the whole package that much more confident.
Chris, right here.
Chris Knight, Catchments.com again. Daniel, tomorrow's race is only 60 laps. Doesn't leave you a whole lot of time, and you have to go from the moment that green flag drops. Is that too short of a race, you feel like, for the truck series, or is that perfect for you guys just to sit up and have a dash to the finish?
I feel like it's a perfect length for us. I mean, obviously, there is no riding. You gotta be on top of it from the start. The only thing it does put you in a bind with is if you have a pit road issue or just any mistake is really magnified because of the distance of the race. But that's Pocono in general, whether it's Truck Series, Xfinity, or Cup. I think everything's magnified because of the length and how much track position does matter. So I like the length of the race. As a driver, I'm just happy to be here, so no matter what the laps are. But I think it's really good the way it is.
Additional questions for Daniel. Daniel, good luck this weekend.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.